Now, after you've written a piece of infrastructure for your app, it's a pretty good idea to write some tests and make sure it works as expected. So at this point, we would be writing tests that acquire the database and make sure we have one, and then read from and write to the database, exercising all the functions and queries defined in the DAO. However, this lesson is not about testing, so we won't exactly write a test suite. Instead, what we'll do is run some very basic provided tests. The starter app for this lesson includes an Android test directory, right here. This Android test directory contains unit tests that involve Android instrumentation, which is a fancy way of saying that they need the Android framework, so you need to run them on a physical or virtual device. Of course, you can also create and run pure unit tests that do not involve the Android framework, and so don't need to run on a real or virtual device. You can find more information about testing in the documentation linked in the instructor notes. Let's open the Sleep Database test file. Now that we've implemented the database and DAO, we can uncomment this test code that uses them. Here is a quick run-through of the testing code, since it is another reusable piece of code. We have a test class, Sleep Database Test. The run with annotation identifies the test runner we are using, which is the program that sets up and executes our tests. During setup, the function annotated with before is executed, and we create an in-memory sleep database with the Sleep Database DAO. In-memory means that this database is not actually saved on the file system and will be deleted once the tests have been run. Also, when building our in-memory database, we call another test-specific method, allow main thread queries. By default, you get an error if you try to run queries on the main thread. This allows us to run our tests on the main thread, which we should only do during testing. Next, in a test method annotated with test, we create, insert, and retrieve a sleep night. And assert they are the same. And if anything goes wrong, we throw an exception. In a real test, you would have multiple test methods. Finally, when testing is done, the function annotated with after executes to close the DB. We can run this test by right-clicking the Sleep Database test file and choosing Run. We choose our device. A pane that shows test progression and results opens at the bottom of Android Studio, and we can see that all the tests passed, which is a good thing. So now we know that the database gets created correctly. We can insert sleep nights into the database. We can get back the sleep night, and it has the correct value for the quality. That's pretty reassuring.